My story, part 2. So last part 1, if you haven't watched it, go back and watch it. I left off that story sharing that I was with a neurologist. I just had an MRI scan on my brain. The neurologist revealed that I had lesions or parts of the nerve which, like, the covering had gone in my brain, which indicated potential multiple sclerosis disease. In New Zealand at that time, I didn't qualify for a diagnosis. I remember being offered drugs anyway, and I was like, why the fuck would I have drugs? Like, I'd already started on a holistic healing path, a natural health path. I'd been educated a lot in that and in the science, and had already self-healed a few things to that point. And I was like, it doesn't make sense to me to medicate myself when my body and my immune system needs to be really freaking strong. And so until I have more information, I'm not going to do that to myself. And so I remember saying to the neurologist, like, what do I do? And he's like, nothing at this point, just make sure your vitamin D levels are high, and we'll continue to rescan you periodically and just keep an eye on it. I was like, cool, awesome. I subsequently quit my job not long after, laid a complaint against my inappropriate boss, and bought a one-way ticket to Australia. It was like not even a week into my time in Australia where I just randomly met this guy who's now my friend at a New Year's Day festival, and the first thing he said to me was, do you meditate? And I looked at him and I remember being like, in my head, what the hell, like who even starts a conversation with that? And I turned to him and I was like, yeah. And he was like, good. I was like, do you? And he's like, yeah. And then we just bonded over meditation. This was like at the start of my self-development in a work journey, and at that point I was kind of just meditating and taking care of my health through nutrition. That was like all I was doing, and hadn't been given a full diagnosis of multiple sclerosis at that point. And I remember it was like the very next day that he messaged me and he was like, hey, do you want to go to a meditation retreat with me like in a month? And I messaged back, like, if I say yes to this, it means I'm moving to this city in this country, Australia, Melbourne, Australia. And I was like, yes, I want to go. And so I stayed in Melbourne. I ended up getting a job that I hated. But it was one of the best things that happened to me. Because as soon as I started in that job that was out of alignment with me, I experienced pain in my physical body, which started just gently in my hips on the very first day. It moved into my thighs, my quads, then around into my glutes, and then up into my lower back. And this is over a period of like 0 to 8 months, to the point that 8 months in, I went to stand up out of my office chair and I couldn't stand. And previous to that, I was like having trouble walking. I was bursting into tears on the train in the morning. I couldn't walk like more than 10 meters without having to stop and like hold on to the fence because I was in tears. And I had intense sciatic pain and intense just like pain throughout my body. And it was purely correlated with me staying in stuff that wasn't okay for me. And just completely ignoring what wasn't okay for me, and then it manifesting in physical pain. So it was at this point in my life that I realized that my body will speak to me through extreme pain, and there is an incredible connection between our emotional health and our and this part of us and our physical health. So I was initiated into this journey, and it threw me back into the MRI machine because of my back. And at this point, an Australian neurologist diagnosed me with MS and tried to get me to take the drugs for it, which I declined. At the exact same time, I was introduced to MS lifestyle and dietary protocols, which were proving to be super successful for people, and I was already doing half of it, so that's what I decided to continue and declined the drug therapy. I subsequently quit that job that was causing me pain and decided like I'd always wanted to hold space for people. But at the same time, I was meditating to try and get the pain away, and I was like hiding in the chapel of the hospital in my lunch times, like meditating the hell out of everything to try and get rid of this pain. That I bumped into this lady who was in hospital for her second round of cancer therapy. We bonded. I felt her energy and her aura and her vibe, and I was like, who are you? I need to talk to you. I was like, your energy is so freaking beautiful. I just have to let you know. And of course, we got on like a house on fire, and I used to sneak back to her hospital room because my job was as such that I could have my own meetings, and so sometimes my meetings were in her hospital room, chatting to her, and she'd ask about my love life. And she was only in her 40s. She was a mum herself. I'm not a mum. She was a mum. And she introduced me to my intuition in a really big way. She introduced me to talking to spirit. She introduced me to the fact that I am an actual medium. I can communicate with those that have passed over. And I actually worked as a psychic and a medium and intuitive for a while as well, reading for people professionally. And communicated with my friend's dad, the one that had passed from a brain tumor that I mentioned when I had the MRI. So that opened up when I was in that job. And at the same time, I got out of that job because I decided that I wanted to hold space for people. So I started an apprenticeship in pastoral care, which I subsequently ended. Anyway, the point is that at this point in my journey, my friend started to do this thing called the spiral. So I'm now a spiral practitioner. He started to change in front of my eyes. I was like on my hoity-toity self-development high horse. And I was like, you know what? I don't need that thing that you're doing. I'm doing my EFT and my affirmations or whatever over here. But my friend was doing the spiral thing, and he started to change. His self-worth rocketed. He had freaking epic boundaries. Like his ability to just know himself and speak his truth and express himself, and just everything started to shift. And I was like, what the hell are you doing? And I want that. So anyway, long story short, I very shortly after started to go through this process called the spiral. It's an energetic and emotional clearing process. It's like kinesiology on steroids. It's literally clears your shit. That's literally what it's called. Your childhood conditioning, our lifetime conditioning, super fast. It's really, really powerful. It's a lot of modalities kind of mushed into one, which creates its power, created by Dane Thomas. And it was like 2 sessions into this that I was like, I need to be a practitioner of this work. Like, it's already changing me. I need to be a practitioner. So a few months later, I became a practitioner of this work. And I've been emotional clearing now for, I think, nearly 4 years. And that is how I learned to hold space for people. But it was only because I was so fearful. I was stuck in my shit. I didn't believe I could change my reality and my circumstances. I was taking jobs that I hated, obviously, and staying in them way past what my body and my system and my spirit and my soul freaking knew that pain would manifest. And so this is how I came to understand what I do now, what I live and breathe, and what I've now aligned with the Wild Grace movement as an apprentice of their work. The mind-body connection, the fact that our sensitivity is our superpower, the fact that when we don't release emotions from our body, when we don't release, when we don't rebalance or recalibrate our nervous system, when our parasympathetic system isn't online, like we're just constantly in this fight or flight zone and feeding the fear and living with beliefs of fear and anxiety constantly, and not good enoughness, and we're disconnected to our power. As women, we're disconnected from our sexuality and our sensuality and our womb, which is only something that I connected to more recently. Subsequently, after doing the spiral and releasing my emotional conditioning and my baggage around a lot of stuff, including sexuality, I did a lot of sexuality work. And activated this part of myself, which so many of us shame. And that's why, like, when you see me dance in videos, I'm super sensual. Like, that part of me is something I hold very, very dear to myself and is super beautiful and connected. And now, like, I live from this space, which is an ability to show up with real vulnerability because I don't have any shame around sharing my emotions. An ability to express myself and share exactly where I'm at and what I need and what I desire and what I deserve as well. And now I help people with the same thing. I'm still a constant student, and that's what I want to, like, share too is I'm so epically human all the time as a you. And I've carried a lot of shame about how I feel like I am initiated into the lessons just a little bit before my clients or my students. So you know how traditional experts were like, oh, I did this thing 10 years ago. I literally am like, I did that last week. But because energetically and emotionally, I have the ability, and this is what I teach people to do as well, to like go into my emotional body and my energetic body and shift stuff and change stuff and release stuff really, really fast. Like I can move through things and learn lessons really, really quickly. So I can be just a little bit ahead of people. And I've learnt that by sharing my story and my journey and my pain and my struggles and the fucking darkness. Like it was only 8 months ago that I was in pain, intense sciatic pain again, and reinitiated into my shadow and my darkness again, different layers and parts of it, that I again was like, it would be really nice not to wake up tomorrow. And I would never consider ending my life again, but the ability that I have to hold myself in that much darkness and try on the idea of dying and facing death at that level is so incredibly healing and incredibly light, I have to say, because then I can really like energetically and emotionally try on in my body what that relief feels like and really experience the relief and cry and release and let go to the idea that I was in so much pain that I wanted to die, and then wake up the next day and just be totally okay and just hold myself in it. And so totally just trusting like what I'm channeling now, what I'm sharing with you guys, and how I kind of came to be where I am now. It's been this epic journey of like being this conditioned good girl and who was all prim and proper and didn't have a voice, and like breaking out of that, and really understanding that the keys to that is emotional releasing and all about sensitivity and all about expression and taking off the layers and claiming our power in that. And as you'll see from my posts, I share very openly when I'm struggling. I think part of my gift is being able to do that so that I hopefully give you guys permission to know that it's okay to be not okay. And just because we're not okay doesn't mean we don't have the ability to hold ourselves through that. I think that's kind of a piece of the new way, is like we can take care of ourselves at a really deep level and connect to our bodies and our hearts and know what we need, and reach out for support and do life so freaking differently to what our parents and the generations before us had to do. Like they had to harden up and they had to do it alone and they had to keep the masks on because life was too threatening otherwise. And I truly believe that the new way is softness. Like it's the most bravest, most courageous act to heal ourselves with softness and sensitivity and love. And a lot more of us are doing it now, but it's still freaking edgy and it's still scary, and I still feel my own walls. And when they want to, when I want to put the masks on and hide from you guys or those closest to me. But I also trust, I also freaking trust that all of the stuff I'm sharing about will prevail and will win. And yeah, I think it's about love and heart, and that will ultimately heal us in like the most super cheesy woo-woo way ever to say that statement. Yeah, so that's a little bit of my story. Thank you for hearing me and witnessing me. It's been really beautiful sharing.